All right, guys. So we're going to take a quick stroll back to lesson 5, where we introduced CSS. And like I said, I'll be doing more of coding today. So there's no need to do all these stories. We already know what CSS means. We are aware of the types of CSS we have. I mean, the types of style sheets we have. You know, we have the CSS, which is cascading style sheet, the common one, and the one we are learning. We have the SAS, syntactically awesome style sheets, which I say you guys are going to be learning on your own when you start coding proper. We have less, and that is called linear CSS. So that's just stories. We also know about how CSS came about, what are the efforts of the developers before they eventually came up with the standard one we're using today, from CSS1 to CSS3 that we are learning today. So CSS3 is the most recent style sheet that is available to anybody to learn. I don't know if I can erase this nonsense that I wrote here. It looks like I may not be able to erase them because I saved them with the file. That's bad. Ah, shit. Let me see. Erase that. No way. I know it won't go. Okay. I'll just be using this as a guide anyway, so I'll still have to code it. So, so like we said in the last class, there are three methods through which we add CSS to our HTML code. The first one is inline style. The second one is the internal style. And the third one is the external style. So let's start with the inline style. I'm going to open my VS Code. VS Code. Come on. Sometimes this, what is it called? This PowerPoint stops the computer. Okay. So I'm going to, let me just find one to open. That's that. All right. It's even on every screen. What's going on? Who is that person that brought this? The person should erase it now.
Are you sure this is not on your screen directly right now?
No. Screen care. Laptop tutu. It cannot be on my screen now.
Because it's showing on every page you move to. So that's
yeah, because somebody used the Zoom pen to write this. Okay, let me see if I can erase it myself. Where is pen? Eraser. Where is eraser? Where is eraser here now?
A person like me, I didn't even know I can access any Zoom. Yeah.
I've removed it. Someone did it. Someone used the pen. That person is not talking now. The person knows himself, him or herself. So, all right. So I've taken that out. Okay, so let's try to, let me create a very brand new file to explain this concept. So I'll call this index1.html. And I can drag this or let this go. Okay, guys, please let's listen and let's concentrate on this so that we can grab it once and for all. So now I have a new file, index.html. So we're going to be starting with inline CSS. Anytime you see me doing this, guys, it's called comments. So you can add comments to your code without it affecting your code. So anything you write in comments like this does not run with your code. And how do you do that? If you are on a Mac, you would press Command and /. So if you press Command and /, it will create the start and the beginning of the comment like that. And then you can write whatever information you want to write inside the comment like that. That would not form part of your code. It's just going to be like for anybody who is reading that code, or for you, whenever you're reading that code, maybe in the future, to be able to remember what you did in that code. Now, there has been a controversy about this or around this. Some developers feel like it's the best way to write your code. When you write your code and you feel like you've done something that might be confusing in the future, add a comment to that. And anybody, whether you or somebody else who picks up your code in the future, would be able to understand what you did. Some other people feel like that you should only do that if you think your code, you are a poor coder, right? So they believe that it's very unnecessary, except you are a poor coder. That if you are a good programmer, anybody should be able to pick up your code and understand it without needing a comment or an information. Well, for me, I'm indifferent. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Whenever I feel like I've written some jargons as a function and I feel like I should come back later to refactor that function, I put a comment there just for myself, okay? Or for anybody who picks it up to know that, well, I know that this is working, but it's bad, and I know it's bad. I will come back to it.
So you said something. What was the stuff that brings this up?
So if you are on Mac, command /. So if you press command and then press /, it opens this comment section. If you're on Windows, it's control and /, right? So it helps you to add comments to your code. Okay, so we'll start with inline CSS. That was just a digression. We'll start with inline CSS.
About CSS, it brings up. So I was doing it on CSS and it was bringing like / star.
Yeah, so it shows in different ways depending on the file you are working on. Because I'm working on HTML, that's why you see it looking like this. If I do this in CSS, it appears in a different way. If I do it in JavaScript, it appears in a different, but it's still going to allow you to add comments to your code. Okay. Right. All right. So we will start with inline CSS quickly. Let's brush through. First thing I'm going to do is to create an HTML boilerplate. So I'm going to have my boilerplate like that. We all know what's called boilerplate, right? So let's call this title inline CSS, yeah. And now inside the body, I'm going to have a couple of items in the body just for us to be able to add those CSS stylings, okay? So I'm going to add something like an
sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. How do I do this boilerplate, sir?
Really? Okay. So boilerplate is you're going to have shift and press 1. That's the exclamation mark. Once you press shift and press 1, you see the exclamation mark, and then you press tab. You tab out. So I'm going to do it again. You press shift and exclamation, the only one, not the one with 3 exclamation marks, and then you tab. So it brings up your boilerplate.
I know that's one method, but if you wanted to do it like manually, is that the one?
You can write it out yourself. If you want to write it out just to be able to understand what is there, or you can do HTML5 and tab. I think that would work too. Let me see. HTML5. Yeah. So you can do HTML5, and then if you type but I think that's a long process. If you type HTML, you select the second one, the one that has HTML:5, and you enter, it will still give you the boilerplate. But I think it's faster with the
in the beginning of the class, if you just gave us the boilerplate, or if there was something else that brings
okay.
That's what I taught you. I taught you how to use the exclamation mark to bring it. This one. Yeah, that's what I explained. I think I did that maybe in 2 classes.
The first class, I'm sorry, I'm just sorry, I'm dragging you back. I know the first class, there was something we were supposed to write to bring it out, and you said you wanted us to know how to do it. And then the next time that you now did the exclamation thing, you were like, you don't want us to be doing shortcut all the time, that you didn't want to tell us yet. So
in the first class, I don't think we discussed anything about the boilerplates. It was after maybe on the 3rd class that we started talking about boilerplate. Maybe it was something else I said. I don't want you guys to use.
Boilerplates. There was a way you taught us to write, and then it comes out. But I don't worry.
Well, maybe if you go back to the video, what I can remember is that for boilerplates, I said this is a shortcut to get boilerplates. Although I want you guys to learn how to write these things, right? So that you don't get used to too much of shortcuts, but I still support you writing your boilerplate like this. What happened? Okay, so I still support you writing it like this. So exclamation mark and then tab out for you to have the boilerplate. Okay. So I'm going to name this. it shows that you have not watched most of the videos. So please try and catch up with the videos. This is how we do boilerplate. I think it's in 2 videos already, 2 previous videos. Inline CSS. So that's the title. And then everything we'll be writing, of course, I believe everybody in this class would know that everything we need to write to see on the website or on the web page would go inside the opening and the closing body tags, right? Is there anybody in this class who does not know that today? That whatever you want to write to show on the website must be inside the opening and the body and the closing body tags. Where's my camera? I need to start seeing people's face. See where the thing wrong goes. Are we okay at this point? Does everybody knows that today? If you don't, please raise that hand. Let me see that hand raised. Right? Don't worry, even if I'm going to give you hammer, I will still explain. But I must give you hammer. If you think you can escape hammer, no way. But don't, because of that, not want to talk. So talk, guys. Okay, so I believe that everybody knows that today. Now, we want to add inline CSS to code, to our HTML code. So let's have an HTML first. So let's say we have an H1 element that has my very beautiful daughter. My very beautiful daughter. So H1. Now, if we want to style this, so first, before we style it, let's try to, sorry, I need to change the profile to default so I can have access to live preview. Don't worry about what I did. You don't need that. All right. So we have an H1, and the H1 is just a simple text, my very beautiful daughter. If we want to style this H1 in using an inline method, okay, what that means is that our style will go inside the opening H1 tag. So if you are styling any elements using an inline styling method, you are going to be styling, you're going to be adding your style code, your CSS code inside the opening tag of that element. So in this case, it's an H1 element. And for us to style this, what we do is to go inside the H1 and then add an attribute called style. You can see that VS Code already gave me that option on what do I want to add to this H1 tag or H1 element. So let's say what we want to add is yes.
Sorry, it's not like I want to draw you back.
I see your hand. Sorry, I just saw your hand now. Go ahead.
At what point does that initial thing that you wrote, that you said no matter the notes we are writing, it doesn't affect whatever we are writing? At what point does he work on it? Yeah, because now we are writing all of this and it's showing on our thing.
It's showing on your what?
Your coding and it's showing on the preview. At what point does the note that we are writing does not show? Because you said now you've included it and I can see everything you're still coding is still showing.
Okay. So you got that wrong. What I was trying to say, and I like that. Thank you for asking that question, because maybe a lot of people have got that wrong as well. So what I meant was that when you do that comment thing, when you do command / or control /, depending on what OS you use, whatever you write inside that comment, like I wrote inline CSS, it's never going to be part of the code. I did not say that every other thing on that page is not going to show. The only thing that is not going to be part of your code is whatever you write inside that comment tag. So right now, if I do another comment, it opened for me. If I write as much as possible lines that I want to write, it's never going to form part of my website because it is written inside of a comment tag. Okay. After that, any other thing you write is still your normal code, and you would see that on your website, except those things that you wrote in between the comments tags. Are we okay? You can see that.
Yes, sir.
Even
CSS,
yeah.
Sorry, sir. So this comment tag now is also functioning like that to do stuff.
Exactly. To do is part of the comments. The only difference is that when you write to do and you write it like this, when you write to do like this, if that keyword is to do, the way I have written it, one of the this thing that you guys installed before, extensions that has been installed from day one, was called to do tree. What that does is that it spoofs your entire page and look for the keyword to do. Once it finds the keyword to do, it will keep that for you and always remind you that you have some things to do. So don't use to do except you want to come back to that thing to redo it. I don't know if I'm communicating. Use any other information in your comments, but to do. The moment you use to do, that extension you guys installed from day one called to do tree, what it does is that it spoofs your entire code. It goes through all the code you have written, and whenever it finds to do, it will tell you that you have some things you want to go back and do. So that's what this one worked for. But yeah, if your question was that, does it work the same way? Yes, they are both comments and they don't run as part of your code. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Abiodun, did I answer your question too?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue. Inline style. So we have a text, my very beautiful daughter, and we want to style that using inline method. So when you want to do that, you go into your opening tag of the element, in this case, H1, you write an attribute. Please mute yourself, guys. You write an attribute called style. And when you write style, let's say what you want to do is to style the color of this text. You just add the property. In this case, it's color. And as I am putting those in, you can see that VS Code is suggesting to me, and I can select any of the colors I want. I can actually choose aquamarine. It's horrible. Let's choose something else. Let's say blue. Simple one. So that's it. So anything you do here is an inline style. Okay? So, and it doesn't mean that you have to style only color. You can actually style as many things as possible. For example, let's add background. You can actually say background. Oh, doesn't, let me see. Let's go here and say what I've removed something here. What did I remove? Okay. Background color, you can add maybe, let's add something that is useless. Good. You see, you can add as many properties as possible, even using inline style. But, sorry?
What's that BCG? After
okay, yeah, sorry. I wanted to use shortcut for background. So normally if I want to write background color, I can use shortcuts by tapping BCG and tab it, but for some reason, maybe I don't have the extension here. So that's why that was not working. So I forgot to remove that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just for shortcuts. Yeah, you can see. So when I type BCG, you see it gave me an option of background color. So there are some shortcuts that you are going to learn as you continue. It's not something that I have to be teaching, but as you continue, you will learn there are some shortcuts that you can type to get what you want. So I can type BCG and it will give me background color. And then I can add something like what?
Bollywood.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to explain here is that right now we don't need an external CSS sheet. We don't need to write it in the head. We don't need to write the styling in the head. We are actually writing the styles inside of the element itself. And you can add as many properties as you want. We already have a color property. We have background color property. You can continue adding like that. You can add something like, what can I add, guys? Tell me something. We can add, well, I don't like adding font. Okay, let's add font style. Thank you. Font family. So let's add font family. And let's just add this one, the first one. You can see it changed the fonts. So you can keep adding like that. But remember, what you're doing is that you're writing styles inline to the elements. And what that means is that this style can only, whatever you add here, can only be used by this element, this particular element. You can never reuse it. But the concept of programming is what we called the concept of reusable elements or reusable properties. On your website in the future that you'll be building, you would have a lot of elements on that page. You don't want to go through the stress of having to add every property on every element. It doesn't make sense. You're going to have elements that share the same style, that share common styles. Maybe they share the same color, they share the same font family, they share the same font weight and all that. How do you group them? That's why inline styling, it's not going to be useful in that case. So in that case, you're either going to have an internal styling or an external styling. Now, why do you use internal or external? You would use internal if all the style you are writing is only going to be applicable to a single page. So let's say on your website, you have 10 pages. Of course, websites have more than 10 pages, if you know. Real websites, like marketplace websites, they have more than 30, 40, 50 pages. So if you are going to be using inline style, it means you're going to write styles for every of the 50 pages. It doesn't make sense. So when you have multiple pages, you are going to need an external style sheet. Why? Because you can then reference that external sheet from any of the pages. So look at it this way. I'm going to draw an analogy to explain that concept, because I think it's very important that we all understand that concept. Where is the, I believe Zoom has what is called,
Sir,
yes?
before you go into the concept that you want to pull up,
Uh-huh.
I just want to ask some questions.
Go ahead, sir.
At what point do you use this colon or semicolon, or is it significant or insignificant, and the space, which are maybe that happened because of the tab and all those things, does it matter before or after?
Okay. So for the colon and semicolon, the colon is, without this colon here, you have not written CSS code. Reason is because this is a property and this is the value of the property. So you are defining a property of color using blue. You need that colon to differentiate for the browser to understand where is the property and where is the value. So that's important. Now, semicolon. Semicolon is a standard practice for CSS. Before, it doesn't really matter. If you don't use it, it would work, but it's not the best practice. But I think recently, even VS Code has been upgraded that without this CSS, without this semicolon, your CSS would never run. So let's take it out, for example. Can you see? The color is gone. So you need that semicolon to be able, for browser to be able to read it and interpret it. So semicolon at the end of every declaration, it's important. It is important.
So it doesn't mean that, sorry, sir. So it doesn't mean that it is when I need to add another attribute. That's when I need. Okay.
No, right. No, it must be there at the end of your declaration.
The tab, the spaces.
So these tab spaces also, this one does not affect your code. If you put everything on the same line, it will run your code properly. But I'll ask you one question. How do you think this code is understandable the way it looks like this? Compared to...
Actually, I've not even, I think you explained that the last time. Maybe you can do it again. I was talking about the spaces in between the color after the colon and all those things.
The spaces in between the color...
After the colon.
This one?
Yes.
Of course. So these ones are just writing clean code. Without that space, your code would run, no problem. You can see it runs. It's going to work. It doesn't affect anything. But your code would be I don't know the right word to use, it's not going to be clean.
It's like typing, writing words.
So when you are writing your code,
is the same reason you space that the meta thing is so that it's readable and it
should be readable. Your code should be readable. It should be clean when you write your code. So that's why those spaces are important to have them. I think Prettier is not kicking in here. So I'm just gonna, I think I took it out. I need a separate profile to do these things. So let me look at the profile to use. I keep creating different profiles because of different projects that I'm working on, and it's not really helping me. Let me quickly create a new profile for this class. And I'm just going to add Prettier here. Sorry. Okay.
Hey, hello, sir.
Yes.
When you talked about Prettier now, my own system too brought up a pop-up that was like saying I need to reload the Prettier, blah, blah, blah. I did that. I want to know what effect does it have on my...
What the Prettier does is to help you format your code. When you write your code, no matter how horrible it looks, Prettier would make it for you, add those spaces for you where there is need for semicolon. If you don't have it, it will add it for you.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, that's what Prettier
does.
Sir. All right. So guys, let's continue. So now, this is how we style inline. If you have your hand raised up and you don't have any question, please raise it, put it down so that we will know if there's a new question. Thank you. So that's inline styling. Whatever amount of styling or CSS you want to write, you keep adding them after the order inside of the opening tag of that element. Do we have any question on inline at this point? Anybody? Do we have any questions?
Just wanted to remind you, said you were going to try and get the concept that you were going to bring it so that you don't forget.
Concept. I already brought the concept. The concept is that instead of explaining everything using the slide, I will be doing more of explaining with code. That's the new concept I brought.
No, not really. Well, before I asked my question, you were about doing something.
Okay, so remind me, I forgot.
I just don't want you to forget. So I thought if I mentioned the concept, that because you were trying to get at something. So
and someone remind me of what I was trying to get at. I think I lost track. Does anybody know what I was trying to get at? I can't remember myself, to be honest. Let's continue now.
No, you only said you need to reload. You stop Prettier on this.
Yeah, I said I wanted to install Prettier so that I can be able to, because my code is not being well formatted because I changed profile. And I think it's still not, okay, I know why. Let me quickly set up my Prettier. Format on save, and then default formatter. Default formatter should be Prettier. Okay, I should have everything working fine now. Save, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so you can keep adding styles as you want. You can see Prettier just helped me to format my style better. So Prettier helped me to separate each property on its separate lines. You see that? So color, background, you see the font family, and you can keep adding like that. Everything would stay inside of the opening tag of that element. Any question, guys, on inline before we move to internal? So I've explained why you may want to use inline, and the reason was if you know that the style you want to add is only applicable to that element, to that one line element, you can use an inline styling method. There's no crime in using it. Yes.
I think with your installation of Prettier, it now made this inline look like internal.
Yes, but the only difference is that it's still the style is still sitting inside our H1 element or H1 opening tag. Internal will go inside of the head.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So that's the difference. So this is still inside the body, and the style is still inside our H1 opening tag. Yeah.
Okay,
No, yes.
So here is the problem. We all installed some of these things, but I don't know if we need to set them, because for me, when I save or whatever, it does not, at no point does Prettier help me arrange anything.
Okay, fine. So everybody open your VS Code. Everybody right now. Let's set up our Prettier. Let's set up Prettier.
Because
sorry, Jem. I was about asking that because
you don't have to
now. Just went to 21.
Let's do it. She has asked the question, so let's do it now, so that we can save some time, guys. We have spent almost an hour already. Oh yeah, everybody, open your VS Code.
You're not working tomorrow.
Sir, ma?
There's holiday tomorrow. So what's challenge?
I'm going on a road trip.
Oh, sure. I come to busy.
No.
Well, sir, where are you going? We can do convoy.
Focus.
Really? No.
Focus, I beg.
Guys, open your VS Code. I'm waiting. Open your VS Code. Let's set
we
up.
We are there already.
Yeah. So if you are there, everybody look at the bottom left of your VS Code. You see this wheel, the settings wheel. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Click on that settings, and then you see a list of items here. There is one that shows settings. That's the one you're going to click.
I got this far.
So click that, and then it will open something like this for you, something that looks like this.
Yes.
Okay. If you are not there, please raise up your hand. I don't want to lose anybody. I'm not going to come back to this thing. We must set this Prettier today. Today.
Sir, my own control is showing. My own control font size is 26. So.
It's not about font size. It is about, can you see what is here? Don't look at the content inside here. That's a different thing entirely. Can you see what I'm seeing right now? This view.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Please, how did we get here? We click on the wheel and what next? I did not get that.
Alami, is your wife around? Answer the question now. Is your wife around?
I'm still at home with my parents for the blah blah blah.
Okay.
Everybody is around.
Okay, I'm starting again.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir.
So, do you have your VS Code open?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, everybody, go to the bottom left corner. You will see this wheel, this settings wheel here. If you can look at my screen. Look at my screen first, and then go to your own screen. So, once you see this settings wheel, click on it. You see a lot of items, command palette, and blah, blah, blah. Now, there's one that is settings itself. So, settings, click on that. I mean, are you there now? No audio. Bob, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm there already.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So if you are here, if everybody is here, now look at this search. Okay, so look at this input thing, the search input here that says search settings. So the first thing you're going to do for me is to start type formats.
This is why I stopped, and I could no longer. No, I think I selected the format on save like you did, but I don't see where to find it. I can't hook. I said, let me ask. Okay, so everybody type formats. If you type format, you will see these things here: editor, format on paste, editor, format on save. What this means is that it will format your code each time you save that file. Each time you do Ctrl S, it formats that code for you. So if this is not checked, make sure this is checked. So normally, if you have not done it before, it will look like this. Just check the box. That's one. Are we okay with that? Yes, sir.
All right. The next thing you're going to do is to remove formats and then type defaults.
Aha. Now where I know my copycat no finish with that.
Okay. So type defaults. If you type default, you will see other things shows up here. Now, the one you're going to look for is the one that says editor default formatter. For me, it's the third item I'm seeing here. So the first one is default color decorators. The second one is default folding range provider. And the third one that I'm looking for, or that you are looking for, is default formatter. If you are there, naturally or by default, it will show none. You will see something like this, none. So you're going to do the drop down and look for prettier. Select prettier. What you're saying is that, okay, VS Code, use prettier to format my code for me. If you're done with that and you got it right, just close settings. Now, going forward, any code you write, the moment you do Control S, it would format that code for you. If you try it and it still does not work, then we need to debug your computer proper. But I believe it should work. Are we there?
Yes.
Sir, I'm totally lost. So maybe because me, I'm using.
You're using what?
Okay.
You're using what?
From the setting.
You're using what? Now I need to know where the problem comes from, bros. You're using
maybe,
what?
Maybe because I'm using Windows.
Okay. Do you want us to crowdfund you to buy a Mac?
Them. Okay, crowdfund.
Please open a GoFundMe for Anyomo. We need to buy him a MacBook.
I don't crowdfund my own.
Eh?
Have I crowdfunded my own?
But sir, okay, sir, let me just quickly tell you what's up now. Okay, once I did that, I think yes, I tapped format, then it brought out label format to do 3, to Kinecon.
So
on paste.
I
said I should tick that, right?
Can you share your screen right now? Do you see format on save?
Yes, I saw format on save. I should click that, right? I should click that.
Yes,
check the box. Yeah.
Okay, how about format on paste?
No. I already said format on save.
Okay, sir. So going down, then I saw editor.
Not going down. Hold on. Not that's the only thing you are going to check on that page. If you check any other thing, go and uncheck it.
Okay. That's the only thing I did.
That's the only thing you should check on that page. Then go back up where you have this search bar. Remove what you had there before, which was format. Now type in defaults.
Default. Okay, sir.
So if you type in default, you will see this. The third items here, probably that's what you see on your own side too.
Okay, I saw default color. Okay, default formatter, right?
Good. So now that default formatter has a drop down. Click on that drop down and look for prettier among everything.
I've seen it.
Click on.
I've seen it, sir.
So click on prettier, and
yes,
that's it. So close settings, and you have your prettier.
You see that
I don't need to. I should just close it. I don't need to save, sir.
No need to save. Just close it. Once you set it,
just same with Windows. You want to quickly tell us you did not listen.
Yes.
It's done, sir. Thank you, sir. It's done.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if something is wrong with my VS Code. Hold on, but every time, all this while that you'll be saying save your work, I don't have to save.
Okay.
And they're always there.
Okay.
So I don't know if something is wrong or it's just okay.
So what do you mean you don't know how to save? You mean you click Control S and it still does not save?
No, I don't even need to. Anytime I just exit and come, close, and it's always there. Like maybe it's auto save.
Of course.
Auto save.
Of course, it auto save in most cases, but you will be shocked the day you write a very lengthy line of code that you spent maybe 3, 4, 5 days to write, and you did not and you come back and it's lost. Oh my God.
I'll go and look for Galata's house.
There's nothing I can do. That's the funny thing. There is absolutely nothing anybody can do at that point. It's
Instead of going to look for Galata's house, first
always always, always save your code. I cannot say this enough. When you start pushing your code to GitHub, bros, there are days that you cry. Like if you are working as a developer anyway, you cry like, why? Okay, so save your code. All right. Any other question before I continue from here? We've now, everybody now have their, should have their prettier working fine now, I assume. So let's continue. So inline, are we okay with inline? Jaido, are you okay with inline now? It was your question, so that's why I'm directing this to you.
Yeah, I'm okay with inline now. I'm okay with inline.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's go on. So let's go to internal. Before I go to internal, I'm going to repeat it again in the for the opt-in time. For the opt-in time, you only need inline styling if you know that every style you are writing, it's only going to be for that particular element. In this case, you only want to style this H1. The moment you know that you are going to need the same style, the same thing for another element, don't use inline, because that way you are not following the concept of reusable code. Code must be reusable. You cannot, because you want to be lazy or because it feels more convenient for you, and be throwing inline styling everywhere. No. Only use inline if that style you're adding is only for that element. The moment you can start with that, maybe you don't know initially. The moment you realize that I'm going to need this same style for another element, just take it out from inline and go and add it as internal. Now, you're adding it as internal because you be like you're still working on one page. The moment your code grows and then you realize that you now have multiple pages, you cannot be repeating inline, internal for all the pages. You now have to take all the CSS and put them into one single file, external, so that you can reference that file from any you can reference that style from any file. That's the reason why you now use external. Let's continue. So that's for internal. Let's do, that's for inline. Let's do internal now. So I'm going to open another one and I'm going to call it internal.html. What's wrong? Internal, a file. Oh, there's already one like that. So let me call it internal one. So let's do another one for internal. So as usual, let's have a boilerplate to add something to. So we call this title internal. Now we're going to write our code in here. Let's say we have several items here. Let's say we have an H1 tag or an H1 element that says my very earth Who knows this concept? This nonsense I'm writing. Who knows? Anybody? No?
Does it have anything to do with the elements of?
It has something to do with geography.
Oh,
My very
everlasting mother just
my very earth mother.
The planets, the 7 planets now.
Planets. Okay.
Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus.
Can you quickly remind me how to copy and bring it down?
Yeah. So if you want to duplicate your lines, you put your cursor in front of that line. You do Shift. If you're on Windows, Shift Alt, press both of them together, and then down. It continues like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Galatas.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, please. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now, if this is just to duplicate just one line.
Yes.
Let's take, for example, now I'm doing a CSS code that, let's say I'm targeting one ID, and in that ID I have like 4 different distance I'm targeting inside it. If I want to duplicate that whole ID, is it possible to? just like, for example, this color code you gave us, the Spanish, this thing, outrightly, what we are meant to do is almost the same for all, except the fact that you have to change the ID selector and the name of the color like that you want to do. Can someone actually make duplicates like that too?
Okay, if I want to simplify that question you just asked, you're saying that what if I want to duplicate a multiple line? Is that the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's the same thing. So if you are duplicating a single line, like I said, you place your cursor in front of that line and do your thing, right? Now, if you're duplicating multiple lines, you highlight all of them, Shift, Alt, or Option, and then down. It copies everything.
You're doing on busy here, right? Right?
Wow.
You know that, right? You know, I'm busy. I'm actually busy here, right? I get away from here, please.
Does that make sense? Alamin, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah. So if you want to duplicate multiple lines, instead of placing cursor in front of one line, you highlight all the lines you want to duplicate. Press the same thing, Shift, Alt, or Shift Option down. And there's another thing you can do again. Let me just shift that in right now. Another thing you can do is that, let's say you have, let me do this. So let's say you have this one here and you have H4 here. So 9 is on top, planet is down. If you want to switch them over, like you want this H4 planet to go top and then H3 to come down, because that happens most of the time too. You want to rearrange them. What you do is that you can click in front of any of these two and move them around. How do you move them around? Click in front of, let's say you want to bring this down or you want to take this up. Click in front of it, click your Alt or the Option, no Shift this time, just the Alt or the Option if you are on Mac, and then click up. You switch them over. The same way, you can bring it down. Click Alt and click down. It comes back down. So you can switch items, you can switch elements as you want using that shortcut without doing copy, cut, paste, remove all those things that you know. You can always do that quickly by just clicking Options or Alt and click up or down. You switch them over. You can say, I can keep taking this H4 up. You see, I moved it all the way to the top. I can always bring it back down as well. And you can do that for any number of elements. I can move 5 elements and take them up. So you switch before the H4 and then you keep going up. And then I took it all the way up. I can as well bring it all the way down, everything. Does that make sense, guys? So you can try it out at your leisure time. Abiodun, your hands are up. What's going on?
Yeah, the thing that's going on is you are performing miracle. And okay, let me be serious. Maybe we need a camera that will be on you so that we'll be seeing what you're pressing.
Directly,
so that we can be noting all of this thing.
How many cameras are you?
Okay, Control Save.
Okay, you know what? Don't worry. We'll come back.
I think, Latas, what Mr. Abiodun is saying, probably you switch on your caption. If you are not seeing what Latas is typing, if the caption can grab, what he's saying, at least that will make it easier for you. I'm sure there's no way he wants to place a camera like that, but if your option is on.
I'm in Mac ecosystem. It's I can do what he said with my phone. My phone is already connected to this call. I can actually move my phone around and you can see, but the problem is this. How many screens are you going to be looking at? You're going to be looking at the code. You're going to be looking at the one that is moving around. It's not going to be easy. This is it. And I always mention the key I'm pressing. The only thing is maybe I'm too fast and I'll try and slow down. So let's take it again. Don't let's have multiple cameras. It's going to be distracting. Trust me. You're already looking at my face, maybe in one corner. You're looking at my screen. And if I add keyboard again, no, it will be too much. So let's do it this way. I'm going to slow down a little bit and watch me do it again. So the first one was if you want to duplicate a line or multiple lines. If it's a line, you put your cursor in front of that line, like my own is right now. You click on Shift button, hold it down. You hold down your Alt button if you're on Windows, and Option button if you're on Mac. So you are holding down 2 buttons. Shift and Option. Hold them down there. Don't release it with your left hand. Use your right hand to press the down button on your keyboard. The down button, you know, there are 4 buttons. One shows left, right, up, down. The down or up one, whichever way you want to, let's just use the down one. By the time you click down, it copies once. Click again, just keep clicking down. Don't release your 2 fingers that you have on Shift and Option. Just keep clicking down, down, down for the number of times you want to duplicate that item. Can you try that, Abiodun? Did it work?
Yes, sir, it worked. It's working.
It's working. And the same thing, I said, if you want to copy multiple lines, you need to highlight all the lines you want to copy. Let's say I want to copy from Sat to Planet. Highlight them first. Now, use your left hand. Hold down the Shift and the Option. And with your right hand, tap down. It copies everything, okay? Yeah. Now, the other one is, if you want to switch lines around, let's say you don't want H4 to be the last thing. You want this H3 to be the last element here. You can use any of the 2. Whichever one you choose to use, if you put your cursor in front of H3 and use your left hand to hold down only Alt or Option, and then press down with your right hand, it switch them over. So it brings H3 down and took H4 up. You can also take this H3 all the way to the top. What you just need to do is hold down your Alt or Option and keep pressing up, 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 up. It takes it all the way up to the top. So this is just shortcut for you to move things around. For now, maybe I'll be chipping in 2 or 1 shortcut per day so that you can get used to VS Code, and it will save you a lot of time when you are typing or when you're working with code. Okay. Does anybody have any question with this one? If there's no question, let's now continue with internal styling, internal CSS styling. So internal styling, we have all these elements in our body, and we are trying to style this element using the internal method. Why? Because we believe that every style we are writing here is only going to be applicable to this page called internal1.html. No other page will share that style. Then we'll be good using internal. Now, how do you add internal style? It's simple. You go into the head tag. Look at this here. This is the head tag or the head section. Let's call it the head section. You go into the head section. Then you add another element called style. So when you add that style element, every style you want to have on this page would be inside that opening and the closing tag. So let's start. Let's say we want to style the H1. You're just going to call the H1 because you must target element that you want to style. Now you can see that we have only one H1 in this page. So anything you add to H1 will be applicable only to that H1. So let's target H1. Now, targeting H1 means you're going to define your CSS class on that H1. CSS property on that H1. So let's have a color for the H1. We can define color and just give it green. Now, if I preview this, you can see that only the first one, which is the H1 that we are targeting, is having the color of green. So what has changed? The only thing that has changed here is that we have moved this style. Instead of having this style inside of the opening tag for H1, we have moved it out of the body into the head so that we can target as much as possible items or elements that share the same style. That's what it means. Now, what that means is that, let's say we are targeting H3. Now that we have multiple H3 on that page, let's say we want to target H3, we can say H3, let's target the color of H3 to be red. Now you see that more than one item here changed to red. This is the reason why we're using internal, because we know that multiple elements would share the same style. And in this case, we have H3 Jupiter and H3 9. They both share the red color. That's why you can see this and this having red color. This is internal styling because we moved the style into the head section. Why did we move it to the head section? Because it doesn't make sense. If you come here in Jupyter, add style, color red, and then go again into 9, add style again, color red. You are declaring the same red color 2 times. Why can't you just declare it in one place and make it applicable to the 2 items? Jem, what's your question?
So, let's say we want to make H3 Jupyter and H6D. We want to make them red.
Okay.
In this case, we want to assign the same color to different elements.
Yeah, thank you. So when you get to that level, that's when you introduce the concept of class, ID, or attributes. So what is the concept of a class? Because the first one, H3, which is Jupyter, and H6, which is there, they have different type of elements. So you cannot target both of them. Although you can, and you can actually, but I will not do that for you right now because it's going to make things complex. Of course, what I mean is that you can target H3 and then comma H6 and add your style. So you are saying this, any style I'm writing here, I'm targeting both any H3 and any H6 found on this page, but that's not specific enough. What if you still want to restrict it to a particular H6 and a particular H3, not all the H6 and all the H3? So that's why I will not go into this for now. We'll get to that one in the future. So now that's when you introduce the concept of class. So because you want this H3 and this H6 to have the same style, you rather go there and give them the same class. So you call it class orange. And then you give the same class orange to any other element that you want to share that style with, which is H6 in this case. Now we have added class for both the H3 and the H6. Let me not use H3 so that because I already styled H3 before, let me use another element. Let me use the H2. So let's put it on the H2 so that we don't have contradictory things. Yeah. So we want to style both the H2 and the H6 to have the same style. The way you can do that, because that way you cannot target each of them individually, is to add either a class or an ID. Now you remember, why won't we be able to add an ID in this case? Because ID must be unique to one element. It cannot be shared by 2 elements. So that's why ID would not be the good thing to use here. So the best thing to use here would be to use a class. So now, how do you now define that class? You just come here and grab the name of the class. What's the name of the class? Orange. And then you can define your style. So let's say we want to just define them to have an orange color. That's it. So you can see now we have the H2 and the H6 sharing the same color using a class attribute. Who is confused? Who's confused? Who's confused? Yeah? Bob?
Perfect.
Bob? Eh?
I'm not confused. It's okay.
Okay. I thought you said you were confused. Okay.
Who's confused?
Who's confused, guys? Who's confused? Who's confused as to how we came about using a class? So if nobody's confused at this point, the reason, I will say it again anyways, the reason why we use class here was because we want to attach the same style to the H2 element and the H6 element. But because they are different elements, they are not the same, unlike when we had the Jupyter, which is an H3, and the 9, which is an H3 as well. Because they are both H3 elements, it was easy for us to target an H3. But now, this time, we want to target an H2 element and an H6 element. They don't belong to the same group. They are not the same H. What do you do to still give them the same style? It is by adding a class attribute and then give them the same class name. So the class name is orange. And any element that shares that class name orange would have this CSS styling. Okay. So that is how you style using internal method. And that is the reason again is that you are sure that any style you write in here is only applicable to this one page, internal1.html. Now, what happens when you have another page in your code that you still want to share the same style that you have written here? You cannot just copy. A lazy person, of course, would copy all this code, all the CSS that you have written here, and go into that code and add it there. But that doesn't make any sense. And again, you are actually violating the concept of reusable code. So what do you do in that case? Because you want these styles to be shared across multiple pages, you have to move your CSS method to an external styling. And let's go for external. So external, if there's no question on the internal, let's go for external. So I'll create a new file. I'll call it an external one.html. And again, I'm going to have my boilerplate, which is very important. And we'll call the title external. Now, let's add some codes here again. Let's say we have an H1. And I'm just going to list people's name in this class.
Sorry, please, who is Jolly?
Julius.
His name is Jollification.
Yes, so he's a jolly fellow. Who else is not?
It's not Jolly. Latas tell her it's not Jolly. You came up with the name.
Jolly.
I wanted to say, have you forgotten me?
I cannot forget you now. You see, that's why I say, how come? Who again? Incoming call. Wow.
Mojit.
Incoming call. Shall fly around me. Maybe you want to help me to pick the kids.
Are they Babolanko?
They come. I need to take a call, guys. Just a moment. Okay, sorry guys. All right, where are we? Okay, we are here. We are trying to do an external styling. Okay, great. So as usual, let me just change this. So we're trying to use an external styling now. H5. Let's put this for H6. I'm doing another shortcut here, but don't worry, I'll tell you about this later. You can actually edit multiple items on the page at once. So you can see that I'm editing the two H1 at the same time. So it's flashing the two. Anything I write will be applicable to the two. So if I say H3, you can see that the two are changing. So when you want to select multiple items, there is a way to do that, to update or edit multiple items at the same time. Let me not give you too much of shortcut at once. We'll talk about that later. All right. So we have these elements on our page, and we want to style them. The reason why we're trying to use external probably is because we realize that we're going to be using these same styles or common styles across multiple pages. So to do that, we are going to need an external file that is going to hold our CSS codes. So let's call that external files styles or style2.css. Now, the next thing is we have the HTML file. Get out of here. So we have our HTML file that carries the HTML code. And now we have a style sheet that is going to carry all our style code or CSS code. Now, how do you connect these two together? Who remembers that? How do you connect these two things together? I want somebody to help me to connect this style2.css to external 1.html. Does anybody remember?
You use a link.
And where do I have my link?
Your relative part.
Yeah, I know. Where do I put the link? The link tag or the link?
That's the header.
The head section, in the head section. Thank you. So we're going to have a link, and this link, once I tab it, VS Code helps me to write it out. So once you put a link, I can do that again in case you want to see what happened there. If you type link and you tab, it gives you what you need for the link. So in this case, it gives you the relativity or the relation, and that's going to be style sheet. And then the href means what is the reference, the hyper reference, what is the file you are referencing. So you put the file reference inside the two double quotes, and that's where we now use our relative file path to locate the style sheet that we're looking for. This is the style sheet we're looking for. If you look in the directory, you would see that both external 1.html and style2.css, they belong to the same path. They are in the same directory. And when two files are in the same directory, the simple way to do that is to start with a dot slash. Once you start with a dot slash, it gives you options of the files available in that directory, in the current directory, and you can see that we already found what we're looking for, style2.css. So we enter. Now, doing this means that we've been able to successfully connect style2.css to external 1.html. Are we okay up to this point? Jem, go ahead.
So, you know how you said that we use external when it comes to multiple pages, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to have multiple pages. So is an example of multiple pages a situation where, like in our capstone project, we had the hobbies page as like another page, and then we had contact me page as like another page. in that case, if I'm correct, if we were to style a H1, will it then apply to H1 on the first page of the resume and also apply to H1s that are on the contact me page? And, like, I don't know, because it didn't work that way for me, and I was wondering.
Yeah, so your question.
I didn't get the question.
So the question Jem is asking is this. I said that whenever you need to, the reason why you'll be using an external style sheet is if that style you're writing is applicable to multiple pages. Now she's asking, what happens? Now, she's asking first, the question of multiple pages, is it that it is the same thing as when you have, like what you saw in your capstone, where you have about me, you have contact, and you have hobbies? Is that an example of multiple pages? And if that is an example of multiple pages, is it that if you now write your style and you target an H1 in your style sheet, is it going to affect every H1 on the 3 pages at the same time? Because it doesn't work like that for her. Jen, did I explain your question right? That's your question. Right. Does anybody have an answer for Jen?
Maybe I have to put something on the target the href. I don't know.
Hold on. Does anybody have a question for Jen?
A question, okay.
Sorry, an answer, a response for Jen. Okay, if nobody has
I think as far as what Ogalatas has taught us, since there's no class differentiation, it will still apply to all H1 on every page. So if there's going to be a change, then you have to put a class or probably an ID.
That's right. Okay, so I'm going to answer that question by using an example in the code. But first, the question you asked and the response you yourself gave is correct. The response to the first question is that, yes, that's an example of multiple pages. So like what you have in your capstone project, where you have about, you have contact, you have hobbies, you can have as many as possible like that. They are all individual pages. So putting all of them in a single website means that you have multiple pages on that website. Now, if you want to style across all the multiple pages, and you know that there are elements that are going to share the same style on those multiple pages, what you do is like what I'm doing, create an external style sheet, write your style in that style sheet. So for example, we have our style2.css. Let's target H1. So if we target H1 and we give it color to be, I'm going to use the one I've not used before so that we can see the difference, blue violet. So now, right now, it changed this page, okay? Because this is the only page where we are using that style sheet. Now, let's go to another page. I'm going to create another page now. And I'm going to call that page about, what am I doing? I'm going to create that page here. Oh, rubbish. Where is it? I'm going to create another page about.html. And I'm just going to put a boilerplate. If you are confused, please talk about boilerplates. And then I'm going to call this about me. And I'm going to add a paragraph tag and write some lorem ipsum. So I have some rubbish text inside the paragraph tag. And so I want to style this, but then I also want to style I want to have an H1 as well. Let me put the H1 on top.
Maybe an ordered list or something.
No, I'm targeting H1 first. So let me target H1, and the H1 would have, let's say, something like this. So the H1 has something like this. All right. Now I have H1 on about.html, and I also have H1 on, where's the external? External one. I also have H1 on external one. Now, first, I need to link the style sheet as well to the about page. You can see that about page does not have the style sheet right now. So let's link the style sheet. So by adding, we are adding a link tag, and then we are passing /style2.css. Now, if you have carefully added the style sheet into all the pages that you need, so what you need to add on the pages is going to be the style sheet, a link to the style sheet. So our about is using that style sheet, and at the same time, our external one.html is also using, I'm closing the other ones that we don't need, is also using the style sheet. So 2 pages are using the style sheet. Now, going into our style sheet and defining H1 to be color blue violet, it means every H1 on about and every H1 on external one must carry that color. So let's see how about look like. So I'm going to preview about. You can see this is the H1. The same way, if I target a P, a paragraph in my style, let's target P. If I target the paragraph and we just give it a color of brown, you can see it's already showing up on the about page. This is the about page, right? It's showing on the about. Let's go and add a P element because we don't have any P element here. Let's add a P element here as well and add some stupid text. So we have a P element in our external, and we have already said in our style that all the P elements that shares this style should have a color of brown. Let's see how external one looks like. So preview. You can see this. It's brown.
Okay, so my understanding for just like you explained that for internal where you can have your code in one place, like in the head with your style thing, and then if you wanted to use it to style multiple pages, which would be wrong, you would then copy that stuff and put it in the head of every page.
Mm-hmm.
In this case for external, you just need to put the link on every page.
That's all.
So technically, it's almost the same. Never mind.
Well, so of course, I can put myself in your shoe right now, and I agree you feel like it's almost the same thing, but it is never close to the same thing. It is never, like never. But at this level of writing hello world, at this level of writing small H1, H2, it looks like the same thing. You are just copying, you're just copying different things. Okay, so I'll accept with you. I'll agree with you for now. As we go forward, only you would know that it is never the same thing. It's not even close at all. But we'll get there, right? We'll get there. Okay.
Because that's why I know you said something in that first class. So when I was trying to style my own, I was using to copy the link and paste on every page because I was thinking it might not be. That's why I said I struggled with what is allowed and what is not, because things look.
So copying the link has pros and cons. So if you copy this link right now, it will work. Why? Because both external one and about are in the same directory. So let's say I do something like this. So
that won't work because you need the //
Exactly. So copying is relative. If you are copying, of course, if they are in the same directory, you can copy it and just use it like that. But if you're not careful, and you would hardly have such scenario in a real life coding, that you're going to have multiple pages sitting in the same directory. It's never going to be possible. Like it's almost impossible. You're going to have your pages nested deeply into different places. Okay, so you will not be able to copy anything at that point. You have to write out and get the exact path to your style sheet. Okay, and another thing you need to know is that you can still have multiple style sheets. You don't have to have one style sheet. By standard, once your style sheet grows to maybe 3,000 lines of code, you should break it. You should create another style sheet.
I think that's where I want to come in. So just like we have this about.html, if I wanted to have a separate property from every other ones, I just want it to be specific to the about. Can I create a CSS for it alone?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
You can have all the separate pages have their separate CSS files. But
because I think I use something similar for my capstone. I think so.
So this is the caveat. You can have each page have their separate style sheets, but it will be very, very unsensible to have each style sheet having about 10 lines of styles, 20 lines of styles. It doesn't make any sense.
All right.
Okay? It doesn't make any sense when you have multiple style sheets and you open one, you see 5 lines. You open another one, you see 10 lines. Why do you have 10 lines, 5 lines? Just put all of them in the same style sheets. What you can differentiate them by having classes. So if you don't want them to share the same style, use classes for the elements that differentiate.
So there's this final one I want to ask. So if you consider Wikipedia page most times, I want to understand the concept of the external and the internal. If you've opened any Wikipedia page, you notice that if you click on probably, if you look at their bulletin, let's say 1.0, immediately you click on that 1.0, everything still happens on the same line. It's not that it's loading to take you to another, the way the thing will be spinning, showing you that it's linking to another page. It doesn't happen on Wikipedia. So could it be that the internal style is what is applicable there? I don't know whether you get it. I don't know. If you open any Wikipedia page, you have your headings 1.0, 2.0. Immediately you click on one of it. It doesn't, normally when you want to link to another page, it shows this thing that is loading, connected. But on Wikipedia page, most times it doesn't. Let's try one.
Okay, so what you mean is that if you click on any of this link,
okay, this one shows that this one has a little delay showing that it links to, but there are some when you are reading the context, immediately you click on it, it's just like a drop bar and the content comes up.
Okay, this is what I gathered from your question. I gathered over reading, you've read too much, and you've read some concepts that are actually true. What you're asking is a genuine question. Don't get me wrong. It's a very genuine question. It's just that it's beyond what we are learning right now.
Okay. Sorry.
But because you asked those questions, I would give you a slight response to that and leave the rest to when we get there. There are 2 questions packed into what you asked. The first one is, when you click a link in Wikipedia, it doesn't take you to another page. It opens that same place. Like it doesn't open another tab. It doesn't take you to another tab to open.
Exactly.
It opens right inside that same tab. Okay? Unlike when you click on some other links in some other pages, it opens another tab for that link.
Yes.
The reason is that when you are setting a link, there is an attribute that I did not tell you guys when we were doing links, because I have syllabus that I'm following, and I'm not going to load everything there. But just because you ask, you can actually specify if you want those links to open in a separate page or open inside the same page. And this is it. I'll show you guys.
Okay. So like our capstone, where we have about me and the other stuff.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yes. So like in your capstone where you have about me and other, that when you click about me, it will open in a separate tab. If you want it to open in the same tab, you only need to set that property called target. So if you set a target to blank, you just, so let's do a typical example. So let's say we want to have something like so let's have an anchor tag, and let's say we are targeting this file external.html. Now what you now do is that you now add targets. You see it comes up, add target and send it to blank.
All right.
When you set targets to blank, what you're saying is that anytime you are opening, let me call this external, that's what we'll see on the page. So anytime you open this, so now we have an external. Now, not naturally, if you don't have this target blank, it will open in another tab. But the moment you add target equals blank, it will open right inside that same one. Inside that same page. That's where it will open. But without this target blank, it will open a separate page. So that forms part of your question. That's the first one. You can see now. Now, the second one, the second question is when you click on a link, sometimes you see some spin before you see that page.
Yes.
And sometimes when you click on Wikipedia, it just switch that page. Okay. That is due to so many things. The first one would be your local machine where you're viewing that website from. If your internet is not fast, if you click a link, it will delay before it fetch all the data for you because you have a slow internet. Now, if you have a very strong internet, all things being equal, your laptop is fine, everything is fine, and then you click a link and it delays, it means it is the way the code was written. So this is a problem that was there in the olden days when website was invented, and was resolved first by using jQuery, which I said you guys are still going to learn. What jQuery does is that it prefetched the data. Even before you click that link, it has fetched that link initially. The moment you open a website, jQuery will help you to fetch everything from the database and keep it for you, waiting for you to ask. The moment you ask for a link, it just gives it to you. So it's not at that time that it's now going to the database to go and fetch data for you.
All right.
So it's like when you go to a restaurant, you want order for food, but you go to a restaurant and the food has already been prepared. It's not Gem kitchen platters that when you order, she will now go to market. She will go and buy the items. She will go and cook before she will now prepare the soup. It takes 3 days. But when you go to Mr. Biggs, they've made the meat pie that they are selling. They already made it. So the
3 days.
So the moment you order for that meat pie, it comes because the meat pie has been prepared, waiting for buyers to come in and buy. So that's how jQuery works. Now, when jQuery was doing it, they still found that there's a glitch, there's a blink. So even though jQuery is prefetching, but when you still click a link, it blinks before it throws the new page. People feel like that's not good enough. Then they invented React. So what React, and we are still going to learn React. What React does is that React uses an artificial DOM. DOM is Document Object Model. The browsers use DOM, which is Document Object Model. Now React does something. It replicates what the browser has. It creates its own DOM and put all the values in there. So it's waiting for you. So the moment you request, it serves you the data because until you change an item in the database, React already has all the copy of your items. Now, even when you edit a page, React will take your edits, it takes its original, it looks side by side. Which one is latest? This one, it serves you that latest. It's not going back to database. So that answers second, but that's why I said this is above what we are learning now. But we'll get there. So that's what happens in there. It doesn't have anything to do with styling and
at all.
Internal, yeah. Okay. Is there any other question? I think today is a Q&A session. It's not actually a class, but I like it. It's okay. Let's resolve a lot of ongoing questions that we've had. Who else have questions? Some people have not asked me questions in this class today. What's going on? Let me trace the names. Wolf. Is Wolf in this class today? Wolf.
You know they.
All right.
We don't check the participant. We only have 9.
Okay. So he's not here. But I'm seeing his name. Okay, no, that's not his name actually. Alamin.
Yes, sir.
Wolf is here. He's here.
I am here.
Wolf.
Wolf is here. Don't mind him.
He's not sitting down behind his camera. He's probably somewhere.
Yes, he just quickly stepped out of the camera, but he's there.
All right. Alamin, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Any question?
Not for now. The question I wanted to ask is actually what Adebobola asked, so I did not want to repeat it here.
So did I answer the question?
The one of the ID selector and the
ID,
class.
okay,
yes.
I'll get there. Okay, thank you. I'll get there. Abiodun, Alpha, are we good? Abiodun.
For the bed, we understand that bed.
No, I think we.
Okay, so Abiodun is not there. Jaido. Okay, you are there. Any question?
Actually, it's like this CSS is now coming into shape, because one of the problems I had before was that, I probably, maybe I need to do more practice for where, when it comes to external, where I need to, like this, instead of putting it in the body, I'm supposed to put it in the link. And when you wanted to do internal, it's supposed to be style instead of link, right? So those concepts were, where my challenges were at some point. So, this has definitely helped.
Okay. Yeah. All right. If any question comes to mind, just ask, flag me down, and I would gladly respond and answer them. Okay, I'm happy with a lot of questions that we've had so far. Jem, go ahead.
So, but I know I shared a resume with you recently. What I noticed, it was a template that I got.
Okay.
What I noticed was it had like a certain, I don't know how to describe it. So you see that part of it on the right that was colored, it came with like a box. It was like a movable box, like you could move to the second page. And on that first page, you could then write inside of the box, like all those skills and, while I was working on it, I know I could move the box to the second page, but I couldn't now write on the box. Then it got me curious, like, let's say if I was working on this, my CV, and I wanted to like make those separate partitions to like, is that something CSS does, or is that something like a HTML thing, or like something that you include a link with a with the box, and then how do you write onto it? Is that something you can do on?
So the way your Microsoft packages work is not always the same the website works. That's actually a software that was built to do some things. It's completely different from what you are going to be writing on the web.
So what I'm asking is, say you wanted to design a web page that have like those boxes on one side, you want to write onto the boxes, you want, something on this side that, doesn't, when you're writing, it doesn't continue onto the boxes. Like, would those be like a site you go, like one time you gave us a link to a picture and all those, like, I know you said it was a work of UI, UX, whatever.
Yeah. Like, So I'm trying to understand the core part of this question. That's the one I'm trying to grab.
Like what's the limit of CSS? It doesn't include like this, like I know you gave us this assignment that we had to reshape boxes. It doesn't include making them, like, I don't understand.
Giving you access to be able to write on them.
Yes.
Okay.
Like those boxes you gave us, let's say I wanted to put those words on the boxes. Is that something?
Okay. So I want you to remember something.
That's not.
When you build your websites, you build your website with some predefined or predetermined contents, right? And that's what users see. When you want to incorporate interaction to your website, interaction meaning that the person using that website, you want them to be able to do some things with the website, not just click and view. You want them to interact with the website. In that case, you want them to be able to supply an input, and you want your website to respond to that input. That is a completely different concept. Now, at that point, we will be talking about taking an input from a user, validating that input, checking if they are allowed to make such input. That's what you saw in that Microsoft Word that you were working on, or the document you were talking about. Maybe it has been set by the creator that once you copy that box to another page, you cannot edit it, you cannot interact with it. And that way it is checking that the box has been copied, and then you cannot write. You can do the same thing on website, but that's not the job of a CSS. The job of a CSS ends at styling the page, adding colors, adding shape, adding padding, adding margin, and all that. That's what CSS will do for you. When it comes to taking input from a user and reacting to the input, it's a combination of HTML and JavaScript.
Right.
So, yeah. So if I understand your question properly, those things you're asking about has nothing to do with CSS right now, because what we are using CSS, or what you will be using CSS to do, is just to make the site beautiful. Place items at some locations where you want them to be. Remove them and move them to another position. That's what CSS will be doing for you. But when it comes to interacting with the page, CSS has ended its own job. You now need a combination of HTML and JavaScript to interact, to accept input, to process that input, and to respond to the input. That's the work of HTML and JavaScript.
Okay, and one last section of that question. So to the last assignment you gave us with like different boxes with different colors, we could apply colors to the boxes, right? Oh no, were the boxes already colored? No, I think they were already colored, and we were supposed to put color on their names. Sort of, yeah. Is it part of CSS to put those words inside of the boxes as opposed to as?
Yes. It is part of CSS. If you want the text to appear inside of the boxes and not on top of the boxes, you can use CSS to do that. Yes.
I'll be curious to learn that part. Thank you.
Well, if not that we are a bit slow, we would have gotten there in today's class. We would have been doing more of flexing. We call it flex. We would have been doing more of flexing items. So flexing items, you can move items around on the page by using flex elements, by using flex standards and all that. But we will still get there. So yeah, don't worry. Since you are curious to know that, yes.
My own question is, how do we determine the size of the page, and then what warrants having multiple pages? Like in the case of Amazon and stuff, is it the design that dictates? I don't know. Okay, I just hope you get the question. Probably let's say we have a width of 500. So what determines the width of the page, and how are we going to do it so that it moves to the next page automatically? How do we set the sizes personally, or there's a standard size for every web page, or what? I don't know.
Okay.
Is it possible?
So yeah, so every web page, when you design it by default, has a size. And the size is the full width of your screen and the full height of your screen.
Okay.
And the way you determine that is that when you're writing your code, in your general CSS file, which is going to be a CSS file that controls every page, you are going to add some styles to the root. Now, one of those styles to the root is whether you want the width to have the size of a viewport. What is the viewport? The viewport is that for this page, anything that is showing on this page should fit in to the size of the screen of anybody who is using it, who is looking at it. So what that means is that I want my page to be fit to the viewport. If you're on mobile, it will be fit to a mobile screen. If you're on desktop, it will be fit to a desktop screen. If you're on an iPad or a tablet, it will be fit to a tablet screen. That is the job of you as a developer. So there's something called, which I mentioned before, called responsive web design. Responsive means your web page must be able to adapt to the size of the screen of the user. You are going to write that code to do that, and we will learn it in this class. So when you're writing your code, you're writing your CSS file, you're determining how you want this page to behave. You want it to be cross-platform. In this case, it should work on any platform, web, mobile, tablet, and any other screen sizes. Or you just want it to be for web. It should not be adaptable. You should not adapt to any other screen sizes. You can also determine that as well. So you determine that for yourself. But in case you do not determine, there's a default window size that every web page must have. And that's what you see inside the boilerplate. Look at this.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Okay.
I did not write this. It says width equals device width. Initial scale 1.0. So it's already preset for you, except you change this, and you can see the name is viewport. What this means is that if you preview this page on any screen, it will be the width of the device. So it adjusts itself to the width of that device, except you are changing this. And initial scale is 1.0. It means take the 100% of the screen page. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Any other question? Jenya, you still have question?
Yeah, I got a quick question. So just to put me kind of a reminder. So let's say this our CSS external HTML. If you wanted to put a background behind, like make the background color, like say blue or green or anything. At what point do we put that one? Is it within the style or inside the body of external?
So if you're using an external style sheet, no CSS code should come into the body. Every CSS code should go into this file called style2.css. Okay, so if you want to add background color to the entire page, you can actually, if you are adding it to the entire body, you can actually say body and declare background color to be yellow. And only the body would have that background color. Where is it? Sorry, that's not the about. So show preview. See now, the body has the yellow background color. So no style should come inside of this body. This body should be clean without any CSS code. If you are writing external style sheets, every CSS code should go into this file called style2.css. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay. Any other question, guys? If there are no other questions.
No, this is a stupid question, but
Right.
it makes sense to say that you can't possibly be combining, say, an internal and an inline method on the same page.
You can combine all the three in the same page. You can, in a single page, you can have the external style sheet. In other words, you have a link. In the simple page, in the same page, you can have style. You can have style and add some style. In the same page, you can have an element, let's say an H2, and add some style and style that H2 differently. Why would you be doing that? And I will answer the question. The reason is that because there are some styles that are applicable to multiple pages. You don't want to rewrite them. So you have those ones in the style.css and you put them here in the link. That took care of those ones. There are some other styles that are only applicable to this particular page and no other pages. Then you can have a style tag and add those styles here. Now, after doing that, there's a particular element that has a style different from every other element on that page. I just feel like, let me style it in inline. You can have it. You can also have an inline and add a style.
But is that good practice? Because wouldn't you,
yes,
all those scenarios, wouldn't you have, used a class tag or like a
okay, so let me tell you why this happens. It doesn't happen when you are when you're building your website. It happens 5 years after you have built a website. And somebody was looking at your website and they say, Jem, I was looking at your website. Oh, I saw this part where you did this. I feel you should have done it in a different way. Why not, instead of using green color in that part, why wouldn't you use red? Red would look beautiful. And you'd be like, okay, I would make amends. Instead of you going to look for your style sheet, because remember, like I said, in a real production code, it's not just one file, 3 files, 4 files that we're looking at. Okay, let me show you a typical code, how a typical website code look like. Let me show you something quick.
So it wasn't a stupid question after all.
It wasn't. It was that's a good question. It wasn't a stupid question, to be honest. So let me show you something, and I'm going to show you this. Where is it? Who can start a collaboration? Who is doing collaboration? Come on.
But that's like what James said. Wouldn't there be a need to have a class for that now?
Class for what?
Since like this one you know now, let's say we want to this H2 that you have the FGD whatever, and you know we already have a general whatever in the other sheets. So for this particular H2 now, if we style it, wouldn't it affect the other H2 in the other style sheets?
Of course it will.
Yeah.
Not in the other style sheet, bros. It will affect other H2 in this page.
Okay.
In this page. If you don't want it to affect other H2 in this page, then give it a class or give it an ID. But the question was, can you have inline style where you have used external and internal? Can you have all of them on the same page? And my answer is yes, you can. Now, what I was trying to explain to you guys is that the reason why you can do that is because when you start working on production code does not end at 2, 3, 4 files that you are looking at right now because we are learning. In a real production code, it is going to be time consuming to go and trace your CSS file. Let me show you how a real production code looks like. So this is the project I'm working on right now. It's a live project that the website is already live. They are using it. We're only building, we keep building features into it. Let me close this. Control.
Lord Wayne.
Control this. Okay. Now look at file structure. You can see we have multiple folders. Each folder has multiple files. You can see a source folder. When I collapse it, it reduces everything. When I expand it, it has other folders, assets, even asset as folders. You can see pictures, plenty pictures, images that are working on that page. You can see utilities. Utilities has its own folder. Global, you can see constant, even a single one of those files will have multiple lines. And I'm going to show you a typical one.
Now one person write all of this thing?
No, this is the project that we have, I think, up to 22 developers working on this single projects. So this is the code from a lot of people. And you can see, look at this. If I click on any line, you will see who wrote that part. That's GitHub, Zach Edwards. This is what 8 months ago. Merged PR, this is what he did. If I go to another file, you will see who did that part. You can always see who wrote that part. You see, this is Zach Edwards. You can see, let me go to some view part because I worked on the view parts mostly. Let's go to this page. You can see another name, Eric Wong.
Wow.
You can see this is a single file, right? See lines of code, 200 and 319. That's a very short line. I'm just looking for one that has, although we try to break our code.
Sorry,
what?
Go ahead. No, I'm just
273 lines. We have codes that are 3,000 lines, although we start breaking lines of code now so that we don't have too many lines. So this is how a typical website looks like. It's going to be close to impossible for you to start looking for your style sheets to go and amend that thing. But the easiest thing to do for you will be just to look for that page and do an inline style because you're only changing color. Just do an inline styling to add that color, and that saves you from the stress. So in a real world scenario, your code is going to be multiple files, multiple folders, a lot of things that you've worked on, and it will be hard to trace where you want to make amendment. Not that you are not going to find it, but it will take time, right? So you need to find a way to do that styling or the styling adjustment using an inline styling. That's a scenario where you can have that. And this other question that you asked before, Jem, that doesn't it look like it's now the same thing as when you do internal and external? Trust me, it is not. Because when you get to this level where you have multiple files in your code, it is not like you're copying and pasting. It's not like the same. In fact, internal styling is completely written off because it doesn't work, right? You are going to be depending or relying on external styling in most cases. Okay, so that's a good situation where you might be forced to go and do an internal styling, even though an inline styling, even though your code is mostly external. But because you only want to adjust a simple thing, instead of you to start digging through the code to look for all the places where you have that thing defined, just do an inline. Does that make sense? Yeah.
You say we can't quit.
No.
But like we can't quit James.
No, you can't. Okay.
I think I wanna.
Sorry, James.
Yes.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think, like I said from the onset, that I think we need to have a mini life project or mini project whereby we can work.
Okay, stop it right there. Stop it right there. You've said this thing twice, and I have corrected it. I don't want to say it again. As it is right now, you have 3 live projects in your hands. How many of them have you been working on? You have the resume projects. You have the my capstone project, or what do I call it? Project.
I will do it, sir. I will do it before Wednesday.
What is that? So why are you asking this question of you should have live project? What live project you want to build Amazon at this stage?
He put shock for you.
No, I need to know. I need to know what I'm missing here. I need to know what I am missing because you said this in the last class.
No, oh God, you are missing me.
I didn't want us to build our
like we work together. You write this line, let me write this line, you write that line.
So hold on. We have this whole training or learning planned out. Okay. We need to follow those plans. And that's the only way we can actually make something good out of this. Right now, you guys are not ripe to the level where you can be doing peer programming. No. You want to do group work. You see, the essence of group work is that I can contribute, you can contribute, he can contribute, and she can contribute. And we can contribute differently to the same code base. At this point, you cannot start doing pair programming. Everybody is still trying to grab 1 or 2 things to sink in. Okay. So if you keep talking about live project, the live project you have now is 3. I told everybody here that those projects, whenever you learn anything new here, go and apply them to those projects. So we've been doing styling, and I said it the last class that only Alamin has followed that instruction. Only Alamin. Because I saw that when he built his resume, he added color, even though the color looked like color Yalata and this thing. But he added color.
I noticed it too.
Please, my own color is on my VS Code. It's
okay, deploy it. Let us see it. So I said everything.
Wait, hold on. Before you proceed. So because you know how you said as we're working and you're updating GitHub, it shows that your map and stuff of what you're doing. I'm wondering if now that I have a separate page for CSS, I had uploaded all of the files for that stuff. It's now domiciled on GitHub for the first one that didn't have CSS. Do I go in now and upload this like a separate thing, or should I just update the index folder and add the CSS folder? Like that's
so it for now, because you're only uploading files directly into GitHub. The only smart thing to do right now would be to delete and re-upload for now. When we
repository completely
delete the repository, delete the content. No, you may not have to delete the entire repository. Remove some files and replace those files. If you have index.html and you have updated your index.html locally, remove the remote index.html, add the new index.html. So you are replacing index.html.
That's CSS that I just wrote into it because it
add it. Yes, you must add that CSS file into the code now because it wasn't there before. And now that it is needed, you need to upload that CSS file. For now, that's how we'll be doing it. When we get to the level where after I've taught you how to use GitHub, then you are not going to need to delete. You just push your update. GitHub will figure it out by itself. It will figure out the old one you pushed and the new one you pushed and merge them together. Only GitHub on its own will remove the old lines of code and add the new lines of code for you. But that's when you start pushing from the terminal. For now, you are only uploading files. GitHub cannot resolve files upload. So you need to do it yourself. Remove old files, upload new files. If there's any new file that was not there before, upload the new file into the GitHub. That's how it
works.
What?
No.
So it wouldn't make sense to just maybe create a new repository and say something with CSS. Name
for the same project? No.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. So I know what you have projects. You have live projects to work on. Work on that live project. Stop asking for real life project. That is your real life project at this point. When we get to a level where we need to, where we're going to do a lot of capstone, like I said. When we get to a level where you need to do more, you will get that capstone, work on it again. Okay. So that's on working on live and whatever. Julie, I forgot to answer to complete the response to your questions. The other question you asked was, how do we determine number of pages?
Yeah.
Right. So how do we determine number of pages? Yeah. So determining number of pages is based on your projects. It's based on your website that you are building. It's just like saying, how do we determine number of doors that goes into a room when you are doing your building designs? And you can know that to answer that question, it depends on what kind of house are you building? How many rooms do you want to have in that house? Nobody determines that. Maybe the owner, maybe you, the architect. So when you're building a website, you cannot have about you, the owner of the company, and what the company sells on the same page. In other words, you start from top, you see what the company sells, and then the next thing when you are scrolling, just saw about me. My name is Julius Akinbode. It doesn't, you know that it doesn't make sense to anybody. Products and about the owner of the product should not come into the same place. So about the company should go into a different page. If I'm interested in seeing about the owner of the company, I can click that and go and see. If I'm not interested about seeing them, I don't need to see it. I only want to see products. So there should be a page that I can see. Not just that, there will be products page. So the first one is products, capital and plural. The second one is products, singular. So when you open an Amazon website, the first thing you see is the products, the plural page. The plural one is the products page, where you have several products.
So where you now filter down is the products.
So you have products. I'm interested in seeing one of these products. I don't want to see all of them. I'm only looking for HP, laptop, 14 Intel, Premium, Silver, blah, blah. I click on it. That's a separate page again.
Okay.
This page only hosts that single product.
Yeah, container for this alone.
So that is the reason why you need multiple pages, because you want a page to host all the items or the products. You also want a page to host individual products. Now imagine Amazon page. You can start thinking how big Amazon website would look like in the code. When you need to have pages for each of the items, although that's not the way it is when you start writing advanced codes. So in advanced coding, you don't need to create separate page for all the items individually. You only need one page to display all the items individually. And that's what we call dynamic coding. Dynamic means that single page can take any item, just pass the item you want to show on that page to it. Pass laptop HP 14, it shows laptop HP 14. Pass another product, it shows that same product. The only thing that will make it to know that it's the same page is that the format will be the same. So you have an image on this left of the product, you have multiple images of the product, then you have information about the product on this side, and you're going to have the cart and information about the cart on this side. So all the pages will have this same structure. The only difference is the items that the page is going to show. So when we get to that level, you guys will learn how to write dynamic code to be able to use one page to showcase different items on that page. I believe that answered your question, Julie. Anybody here? Anybody? Question?
We'll never run. You say we can't run.
You cannot run, Jem.
Wow.
All right. So if all things being equal, today we have digressed a lot. I don't even know where I am again. Where am I? Or where was I? Guys.
We were talking about putting having all of the styling methods on the same page.
On the same page. So I was saying that it is very possible. The only thing is that there would be a reason why you need to do that. On the normal circumstances, you don't have to do that. If you are building your website from fresh, of course, you push all your styles into the external file. It will be fine. You will be good because there's no reason to have an inline mixed with internal, mixed with external. But let's say down the line, 3 years after, 2 years after, you want to update something, instead of you digging through the entire code base to be looking for where that style was situated, you can just have an inline styling to just change something and move on. That is why you may need to introduce that into your code. So right now, we've been able to review inline styling. We've been able to review internal styling, and we've been able to review external styling. And I've answered questions about these different methods. Welcome back, Mr. Abiodun. So who still
I'm
has...
here for the while.
No, you are not.
Every times I get.
Okay. So who still have any questions as regards inline styling, internal styling, and external styling for CSS before we move to what we did last class? It's 3 o'clock, but because we actually barely started 40 minutes after our normal time, so we're going to spend the next 40 minutes to look into what we did in the last class. Who has any question on this internal, inline, and external before I move on? So if there's no question, I would move to what we did in the last class now. So the last class was CSS properties, and we started that class by talking about some CSS rules, which of course you have used some of them in the previous parts that we worked on. Now we're going to be defining the rules even better. And I explained where, yes, Jem.
Sorry to cut you short. Before I wanted to do that before you go far. So on VS Code, say, because I had my resume thing still on, right? And instead of like, I've saved all the individual pages and stuff. But when I click close to like close that window and maybe start a fresh one, it brings up like, do you want to save the changes you made to, wait, hold on. I'm not sure. Sorry. Let me see if this works now. Oh, it does. Never mind.
Okay.
So it feels, I think out of like many pages, he had one that wasn't saved because he was asking me and I.
Yeah, it shows that there's a page that has not been saved. That's why. Okay.
Sorry.
Can you lower your hand? All right. So guys, let's continue with this. I started talking about the CSS rules that you defined when you're talking about CSS properties. And how do you actually add some properties to your website? Let's say you want to add colors to your website. I talked about the fact that when you define a style, the first part of it, which is the exact thing you want to style, in this case, background color, it's called the property. And what you define for that property is the value of that property. So in this case, the background color is the property and the red is the value. We also talked about targeting. So look at the second part here, where we were targeting H1. And when we're targeting an element, we have to specify that element, which is if you're targeting an element. You define the property of color and style it in blue. Now, I also explained the fact that you can actually style this in blue by writing it differently away from writing as blue. Because when you write as blue, what you're doing is you're doing a named color property. Now, we can also have hex code to specify blue. The hex code for blue or for any other color will start with an hash character and then the label for the code. And I gave you some links where you can find those hex code for the colors. I gave you a link of the MDN websites. I also gave you a link to multicolor websites so that you can determine the theme of your website. So let's say you have an idea, a website idea that you want to build, and you're just not sure of the color theme that you want to use. You can actually go to one of those websites I gave you to see how colors match, and you can choose a set of color to create a theme for your website. Now, this I believe we've been doing already. I don't think there's any issues with this. If there's any issue with any part of this, just tell me or flag me down and I will talk about that. we did an exercise where I asked you guys to style this simple page by styling the text separately and styling the background differently as well. For the most part, I've seen maybe, if not 100%, 90% of everybody in this class have done this exercise. Even those who were not in the class, they've been able to submit afterwards. If there is any question on this, please flag me down. Now, we went on to talk about font properties. What are the things you can declare? What are the properties you can declare on a font? We talked about the color declaration or color properties. We talked about the font weight property and how font weight property would work. We talked about the font size, that you can also declare a size of the font you want. Although I gave a caveat that it doesn't make any sense, and it's not going to be it will be a bad practice if you start declaring font size on an H element and heading element like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Why? Is because those elements already come with their predetermined sizes and how they should look. So let's say, for example, on your page, you declared an H1 element to have a title of your page or a heading of a section. And then somewhere down the line, you declared an H4 element. You now went ahead to go and style H4 element to have the size of H1. How do you differentiate that this is H1 and this is H4? So it's not going to make sense. So if you're declaring any of the heading elements, H1 to H6, you cannot add font size to them or font weight. Those two things cannot go with them. So this is just a typical example. It's not going to happen in the real world. And we also talk about that the fact that we also have what's called the font family. Like, what font style do you want your website to have? And I went ahead to take an example of an H1. The font size, having the font size of 20 pixels. I explained different ways by which you can specify your font size. Either you use pixel, which is going to be 1/96 of an inch, or 0.26 of a millimeter. If you study mathematics or engineering or statistics or whatever, where you have used inches and millimeters before, you will have an idea of this. If you have not, it's simple. Go on Amazon website, order for a tape, a measuring tape. In your house, only you draw out the tape, look at inches, look at mm, see what 0.26 of an mm is, then you can have an idea of what the size looks like. If you cannot have that, if you cannot do that, go to a sawmill, ask them to borrow you a tape. Anything you can do just to get an idea of what the measurements look like. I talked about points. You can also declare your sizes in terms of a point. And I used Microsoft Word as an example, that the font, when you set a font size in your Microsoft Word to 12, what you're referring to is 12 points. So you can have an idea of how 1 point would look like. So you can set a size 1 on your Microsoft Word. You have an idea of what 1 point is. And it's the same thing as 0.35 of a millimeter. EM. We said EM is relative to the parents. So the parent in this case is going to be when you have something like this. So in this case, we have a body element, and we have lots of children. We have an H1 child, we have an H2 child, we have a P child as well. We also have an anchor child. Now, when you want to set, let's say, for example, the size of this P element, and you're setting it in relative to the body, or you're using EM to set that element. Let me close this particular slide. We're done with this one. And you're using EM to set the size of that P element here. What that means is that whatever size the body element, which is the parent, it might not be the parent in another case, it might be something else, but in this case, it is the parent. Body is the parent. Whatever size the body has, the size of the P element will be a percentage of the body size. So setting an EM, setting the size of an element using the EM, you must be mindful of the size of the parent of that element. Which parent is this element embedded inside of? So I believe this is straightforward as well. if there's anybody who have a question on how EM works, you can still raise your hands, and probably we'll take an example that we did last class to explain this again. We mentioned REM. REM is relative to the root. So the difference between the EM and the REM is that the EM is relative to the parent and the REM is relative to the root. So I use this as a typical example. So this is the boilerplate where we have the body element, we have an hello, which is an H1, then we have a footer element that has a child H1 hello. Now, if we are setting the size of H1 to be 6 rem, we are saying that it will be 6 multiplied by the size of the root. And what is the root? The root is HTML. HTML element. Who is breathing like that? Is there a problem? Who? I need that person to talk. If there's a problem, let's know what the problem is. Bob, is it you? Or is
No, I actually just on mute.
Okay, Ayoma, was it you?
No, sir.
Who was it? Somebody breathed like the person is confused completely, and I need to know if there's something I can do right now. Maybe it's just coincidence. Okay.
Oh.
So now, if we are saying that we want to set the size of H1 to be 6 rem, what we're saying is that it will be 6 multiplied by the size of the root element, because it's rem and it's 100% of the root. But what is the root? The root is the HTML element. Now, if the HTML element already has 30 pixels as the size, and we're now saying that let this hello element or H1 element have 6 rem, it will be 6 times 30. So that will be 180 pixel. Why are we translating them back or converting them back to pixel? Because your browser does not know what is an rem. Your browser will do the conversion internally to pixel. But how would you know what your browser will convert to if you yourself don't understand what rem means? Now you may ask, why do I need to use rem or em if I can easily style and use pixel directly? And the reason I gave in the last class is that majorly it will be needed when you are working on an existing website that somebody else coded and they have used EM and REM in several places. And because as a junior developer, when you join a company, you're not going to be tasked with building a website. Nobody will give you such a job. Part of the job of a junior developer who just joined or who just got their first job is to ask them to be fixing some small style issues on an existing website. So let's say there is a website that is already running and they've got some feedbacks like, this text is too small. This text is too big. This text, the color is not fine. The color is not okay for color blinded people. Please help us. Those are the jobs they will give you as a junior developer. You go and increase the font size. You'll be reducing font sizes. You'll be changing colors of fonts. That way, it's not just doing that they want you to learn. They actually want you to be using that time to dig through the codes, dig through existing codes, get confused, ask questions. I can't find that element. The element you asked me to change the color. I've been looking for it everywhere. I can't see it. Then they will now start telling you, okay, open this place, close this place, open this one, expand this one. That way you start learning how standard codes are written. That's going to form part of your first job. So don't be scared that, this one that Latas is showing us this heavy code. Is this what I will be tasked to do when I got my first job? No, you are not going to start doing that. You're going to only start doing little things on the web page to familiarize yourself with code base. So that's a digression. So that's how you use the REM and the EM. And I gave everybody in this class an opportunity to play around some existing code that I gave you to change things and see how things change on that website. And like I said, as I'm explaining this, if you have any question, flag me down. Then we moved on to talking about font weight. I looked into font weight. I told you font weight can be defined in different methods. You can use the keyword definition. If you're using keyword, then you'll be defining normal, bold, or light, or whatever. You can also define using the relative to parents. In that case, you'll be using lighter or bolder. When you say lighter, with reference to what? With reference to the parent. So if you use the word lighter or bolder, it is in reference to the parent. So if the parent was bold, then this child will be bolder. If the parent was bolder, I don't know, maybe it's going to be boldest. Anyways, you get the gist. The gist is that it's always going to be a little bit upwards from what the parent was. We also said that you can define weight using numbers. You can define your font weight using 100, 200, 300, between 100 and 900, all inclusive. You can define it like that too. It just determines how bold your font is. Yes? Okay. Font family. I explained extensively on font family, on how you set font family, and when you need to set it yourself or when you need to use Google Fonts, and what happens when you set it yourself based on the fact that different OS have different font styles. Yes, Gem.
I know I'm the one that asked before, but font size not to be used on the H elements.
H1,
right?
or any of the header elements, yes.
Header elements. Font what was the one weight?
Mm-hmm.
Also not to be used on any of them, right?
Yes.
So just the font family and maybe color we can
and
use
any
on
other thing that you can style that will not change the look and feel of that H element. Okay. Lower that hand, lower it. All right, so font family. I talked about when you set font family, sometimes if you are writing your code on, let's say on Mac, and you declared some fonts family, and it's showing as you want it to show, when somebody that uses Linux or Windows opens that website, they may see something different. Why? Because when you were writing that code, and the font you used is actually available on your OS, but not available on other people's OS. Sorry, 1 minute. Yes, Abmalik. All right. So different OS have different fonts that were built with them. But to avoid all this problem, you would rather use Google Fonts, so that any font you're using is being pulled from the cloud. And because it's pulled from the cloud, regardless of the OS, anybody viewing your website will be able to see those fonts. That's how we got to Google Fonts that day. We talked about how you declare your font family. If your font family has more than one name with spaces in between them, you must wrap them with double quotes. Okay? So as against what you have here, which is a single word, there's no double quotes. Helvetica is a single word, no double quotes. But Times New Roman is 3 words with space in between. You must add double quotes to tell the browser that this is a single font family name. All righty. Then I also say you guys should play around on the existing code to see how that works, change some things around, and I believe everybody does in the class. And if you happen to watch that video because you were not in class, I believe you must have done that. If you didn't, you can still do it. We talked about text alignment. How do you declare text alignment? How do you want to align your text? Maybe you usually do in your Microsoft Office Word. You can align your text to the left, to the right, or to the center. We do the same in web development. You can define your text alignment by saying text align center, text align right, text align left, whichever place you want to put it. And we did a hands-on font properties where I gave you guys an exercise to work on, some of which include the color styling, the sizes, the font weight, the font family, and alignment, all combined into one simple exercise. And as usual, I saw that a lot of people have done that. Even some that were not in the class have done it. I believe you just didn't copy from somewhere. You actually went through the lecture and you understood how this is being done and you did it yourself to understand. Then that was the end of the last class. And we were supposed to continue with Chrome developer tools, still on CSS, and today. But as God will have it, we are not going to be able to continue with that today. We have spent the day to answer questions, which is very perfect. And we've spent the day to retrospect on what we did before. And for the next 5-10 minutes, guys, I am open to questions. Any questions that have been bothering you, the questions that have been making you feel like maybe I should just give Latas an excuse and leave this class there. I don't think I can do it. Let me look for one excuse and tell him. That one that's making you feel like that, ask that question today. Do you think you are the dullest in this class? Do you ever think some people are in this class, they are smarter than me? And not just smart.
I'll be the last.
Now, maybe the last person, I know go fit to this thing because
can you stop recording so that we can make our confessions?
Yes, so I'll stop recording now and people can share in the next 5-10 minutes what's